it was like growing up in an unmodern century. West Virginia was a remote area. There were no major highways through there. It was just small country roads. And the people liked it that way because the isolation gave them a sense of freedom. They could think what they wanted to, believe what they wanted to, and pretty much do what they wanted to. But this gave me a perspective on the world that I then entered when I was in my late teens, when I started to do a lot of travel. And so I confronted what we called modernism quite late in my life. I grew up in a community that wasn't that different from the old country, whichever old country it was. And that's been important to me because I went through modernism. I studied in the university and graduate school and all that. And I realized that I was fortunate to have had another life experience than modernism. For example, I taught in a school, it was a Quaker school, and a college, and one of my students had never operated a Hoover. She'd grown up in the suburbs. Well, that wasn't true of me. And but going with modernism has given us some of the problems we have with our world today, because it puts a high value on rationality and reductionist science of rationality, and this denies pretty point blank a lot of the fundamental things that people have always thought always mean 2 million years. And since the 1700s in the Western world, we've turned our back on all of that, regarded it as superstitious and not scientific. But we threw out the baby with the bath, basically, because those ideas and beliefs had developed over the millennia, and they reflected people's gradual experience of what it means to be alive and to be in community with other people and to be ethical. And so there's a jump there now to something allied to that, and that is DNA. Because now we can access the sort of conditions, the history, and the people, the individuals who lived through all these changes, going all the way back. Now, in the old cultures of the world, I'm just going to name 3, China, India, and Greece, these records have been kept. I'm thinking now, especially of the Ancestry records kept in China and in India. But the Greeks were still doing some of the cultural things which were not based on patriarchy, but still on matriarchy, up until about 1700 BC in Crete. Now this is remarkable because the way the movement of people had happened, patriarchy got the wheel and the carriage or the cart, and with this they were able to be warlike and conquer people and move from let's say Mesopotamia over into Europe and stuff. When I was growing up in Appalachia, the people of West Virginia were considered to be backward and somewhat uneducated and so forth. They were cut off from parts, but in effect they had chosen that. But stereotypes developed. And these stereotypes were even brought out in places like the New York Times, which I mentioned earlier, of a stereotype that's very negative. It has the image of the hillbilly, maybe the moonshiner, things like this. I realized when I came out of West Virginia that people were confronting me. They didn't say anything about it, but they were confronting me as the stereotype. It was subtle, you know. But I had that, I have had that in the course of my life. For example, I was applying for jobs in Boston once, and I was living in England, but I'd come back to West Virginia to apply for these jobs. And so I was sending out resumes from West Virginia to Boston. And I'm sure none of them were ever opened for the universities that I was applying to, you know, because Boston has 500 colleges and universities. And so, but it's these subtle things, but I've carried them in myself. But when I got into Ancestry, I found out important things that I could really value in my past. And one of those things was that in my maternal line, my grandfather, Edward Everett White's ancestry, straight up for many generations, there was a line of 4 or 5 generations of Quakers. Now, hold that idea there just for a minute and realize that 50 years ago, I applied to work for a Quaker college. It's called Friends World College. It has centers in all over the world, all the continents. And it was to expose young people to a genuinely transcultural sense of belonging and belonging with others. So I was attracted to this 50 years before I knew that it was in my family. And I found this quite amazing. And there's a man, Henry Louis Gates Jr., who is revolutionizing what Americans feel about themselves, because he's, over the last 8 years on the public broadcasting system, PBS, his programs are usually on Tuesday nights, he has interviewed, well, I guess hundreds of movie stars and famous entertainers. And to a person, man or woman, they seldom know anything about their ancestry. But when Henry Louis Gates focuses his resources as a geneticist and a professor at Harvard, he uses genealogy, family history, but he at the end of the program he brings in DNA. Now this is very interesting because always before we've been limited to family history, but DNA reveals surprises. Every one of these people who comes on the program gets a surprise from DNA. they're not actually who they thought they were. And it's usually that they're more diverse, that they have a mixture of background and a mixture of places in the world and a mixture of cultures. But Henry Louis Gates Jr. feels that there are traits in these people present today that they can trace back to the stories of their ancestors. So I feel we're on pretty solid ground here, you know, and I myself have found this, and for one small thing, but it's also a big thing, it enabled me to realize that my ancestry was broader than the stereotype of the person from Appalachia. And that, in fact, that I had whole cultures and histories behind me. The simplicity and the warmth of the people of West Virginia is with me today. I speak to people on the street like I was in my hometown. They don't know me. They don't know what's happening. I feel a little foolish afterwards. My wife says, "Why did you do that?" But so there's positive and negative in all these things, you know. So Carl Jung called his view the collective unconscious, and by that he meant that there are images, not words, but images that are in this old psyche of ours, which date back to early practices of humanity. And they happen to be universal. They don't look exactly the same, but it's like the same motif, like the mother or the father as an archetype. And so this gave us an intellectual basis to be able to say human beings are different in all these cultures, but they have the same earth. They have the same earth mother. They have the same experience of first making fire and, you know, blah, 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 years and years in the past. And so in the last couple of years during COVID, I have been studying ancestry and DNA, and specifically my own ancestry. And I feel like that the DNA, the genome, is similar to the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious are the images that appear in our dreams and in our history, like some languages were originally images, almost all probably. And that's the way people thought. And so we can see that we are really all connected. And that's a marvelous thing to focus on and try to implement in one's life. And it does produce the quality of equality. And equality is a value that has yet to be realized. What is opposed is, I think, that me and my people are right. Me and my people are right. And now, is that modernism? Well, if you look at the world today and the conflicts, you'll see that a very large number of populations and cultures and military complexes believe that.
Yeah.
We are right.
Yeah.
And that's modernism in the sense that it denies that we have a history of trying to honor the rights of people. This is something it's taken us years to come from Magna Carta to anything like representative democracies, as opposed to oligarchy and autocracy. But there are features of the modern world that are autocratic. They're right there in the center of things. You know, so it's a kind of. It's not that we have been rational. We had to go that way too, but it's that we've become too denying of things that are not completely rational. Now, it's not completely rational that a person has feelings of warmth toward another person. It's not really rational. You don't arrive at that by being rational, I don't think. Or a narrow rationalism, that is. So there is a sense in which the present world is pretty far away from the collective wisdom of humanity. If we could get back to that and see that it's better to make peace than to make war, blah, 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 you know. This is what I'm trying to suggest. I'm not being anti-rational. I'm just saying if it's only rational, and if it is too reductive, that it can spoil our humanity. I had this dream that involved a person coming to me on a major holiday, and it was the solstice. But when I woke up that morning, I had no idea that it was actually that morning as the solstice. And I hadn't even placed it in my visualization of the calendar, when to expect it or what to look forward to, or it wasn't in my rational mind at all. But I think there's the possibility that I tuned into something that has been one of the most pivotal awarenesses of human beings since the beginning of time. You know, with the creation of these sanctuaries that register the first appearance of the new year and so forth, in terms of light. Megalithic cultures, and this cued me into the fact that I have a very old psyche. I'm not unusual in that sense. I think we're all carrying this DNA information. We're all carrying this collective information of what we learned about the basic things, how to survive famine, blah, blah, blah. You know, and so the world calendar, that is the cosmic calendar as far as the earth is concerned, is contained within my own collective unconscious. I'm 83, I don't have a job, I don't have to do a job, and I can do things like artwork and dream work and so forth, and creative work, the creative. And the creative for me is letting myself learn from my dreams, perspectives that are miles beyond what I would ordinarily think. You know, if somebody had told me that, you're going to dream of this, in the dream it's going to be the solstice, and in the actual calendar it's going to be the solstice, I would have thought, you know. So that's the sort of exploration that I want to do. I have a little bit of skill in it because I've worked on dreams all these years, and I've worked with other people's dreams, of course, and I've trained people in psychotherapy. But it's very humbling because one day is, in a sense, just like the next. You wake up and there's your routine. You have certain things you do the first thing in the morning and blah, blah, blah. And you might not be aware that you just had a dream that was earth-shaking. You know, that opened up vistas. So I hope to live to be an old age. I would like to, because it would give me time to have more of these realizations. You could call them the sort of things that people experience when they see a sunset, or when a synchronicity happens to them. Something that's sort of beyond immediate explanation, but seems to connect them with the depths of things. But these things are available to us all. Well, when the first time I read it was 5 years ago, and it was at the community center of the Musqueam community. And so the majority of the audience were members of the band. And I didn't know how they would take it. You know, there's a trend in writing, and writers are being very critical of sort of taking over other people's cultures and stories and ideas, and you know, getting good books out of it or whatever, movies and that's a trend that writers and other artists are trying to become aware of. And I didn't know what would happen, but I saw the faces of some of the young people, and they sort of softened, and Deborah Sparrow herself, the famous weaver, was in the audience, and she and I made a contact, and I realized that we were together, you know, on something. It wasn't that she was this and I was that. It was that we were both human and capable of human feelings. I had a lot of, I'm not going to call it nervous energy, but there was a big build-up to coming. And you speak of things like this in yourself, and it's true of all of us. If you know that standing before other people and putting oneself out there, I mean, are they going to like me? Are they going to dislike me? Are they going to understand me or even misunderstand me? You know? But it's necessary to take the risk. Well, I'm going to put it simply. There were about 30 people there, I think, and there was a rousing applause. And I felt that applause, that they meant it. I felt it wasn't just polite, you know, where we have to do this at the end of things. It seemed enthusiastic to me.
Yeah.
So I felt very good about that. Like we had connected. He thought it was quite important because he realized that in the West, we had started with ideas that there was good and bad. There was up and down. There was so forth, with a binary perspective. And I feel we're still in that perspective today as a whole. Yeah. We still think some people are good and some people think the right thing, and some people are bad, and some people think the wrong thing, and we're the good ones and they're the bad ones. Yeah. And Jung would call that the projection of the shadow, because he would say that we all have a mixture of human traits in us, light and dark. And only when I can accept that I have the dark in me, really know that, first-hand experience, then only then can I be less likely to project something thought to be negative on another person or another culture. So I think he's a pivotal, seminal thinker for the modern world. And the water bearer, the Aquarius, you see, our age is Pisces, the two fishes. It's two things, and it's right through our history. And Aquarius is a unitary symbol, and he's the water carrier. But I'm still searching for the meanings of this symbol. Yeah. It's not binary.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not two things. It's not, and water, after all, is the symbol of the well springs of life, and the ocean, the basis of our nature, human nature. Let me describe a piece of process work. Okay, in a training setting. So the people are coming there they're already professionals of some kind. And the training is subjecting yourself to the process. So a person is invited to work in the middle, let's say with Arnold Mindell. And so in that process, their own process really evolves. That is, things start to happen spontaneously, and they're kind of like on the edge of things. Like, I don't already know about this. This is the unknown. This is slightly scary. I'm not directing this drama. But it turns out that this is the psyche trying to bring about balance. This is the psyche revealing the part of us that's beyond the modernist perspective of things, that is creative, original, earth-shaking, scary, not consensus culture, not consensus culture. Here I am, a person, I'm not consensus culture. Once these things were happening in my groups, then I had another subject to write about. I had not case histories of people with chronic mental illness, but expansive stories that unfolded in the training groups, and that I was part of it. I mean, I was taking part in it myself with them. And literally, these people are my friends to this day, because we lived through something together that changed us. That's the thing about process work or Jungian psychology. The therapist changes too. The therapist is involved in a process with another person, that they're affecting each other, and they're both going beyond the bounds of their usual perception of things? That's an extremely good question, and it's been part of my purpose in life, is to leave something behind. And I'm leaving behind the videos that Keiko's has made of me, and I'm leaving behind my books. But now I'm leaving behind a record of a family tree which I've culled through 2,500 names to form. And it's revealed that I have a Quaker past, which I didn't know about. It's revealed that through a DNA match, it's revealed that I'm a direct descendant of William White of the Mayflower. It's revealed that I can trace almost name by name back to a man in the year 1015. And I have this on a tree, you know. I made a friend of mine, he was there yesterday, he made copies of these trees for me, and I gave one to my granddaughter, and I gave one to one of my cousins, twice removed or something like that, who just had a baby, and they have these 4 panels, and they're going to be able to give them to their offspring if they have them. Well, one of them has just had 2 children, and so it's like that quote from the Broadway musical Carousel, in which it is stated, as long as one person remembers me, it was worth it.
What would you want that great-grandchild to know about you and what you stood for and what you thought about?
Religious freedom and equality, if you're talking about values.
And do you have a message for your great-grandchild? What would you like to tell them?
I'm trying to think of a quote from Zorba the Greek. Let me teach you to dance. Yeah. Go with the flow. Be open to experiences that are just unimaginable, because they're actually there for the taking. Have we passed the point of no return? I can't say, but a Jungian analyst affected me by some talks he gave, because he said that we should try to give ourselves over to the possibility that the earth that we know may not be here forever. That's something that should start to work itself around in our mind, and I adhere to that. Although I'm still more optimistic as a person, but I need this realistic perspective that we're at a really dangerous point of degradation.
What do you have to say about VAX? Vancouver Arts Colloquium Society.
VAX, Vancouver Art Colloquium Society, has given me and many other people the chance to meet diverse people in our own community, creative people, ingenious people, good people, and it's how I met you, in essence, and it's a force for the good, I'm proud to be associated with Keiko Honda, the president of the Vancouver Arts Colloquium Society.